Hello there. Today I wanted to talk about material instances. These are a type of material that actually allows you to edit its properties while the game is running through code. In this case, I've linked the material to the velocity of the player ball that I'm using. You could use some other kind of pawn. You could use, a kind of pawn. You could use any kind of actor you want that has some sort of velocity and for the code that I'm giving you. So in this case, notice the pattern on the ground in its current state. Notice how it's mostly there's all these warm colors in it, but if the ball speeds up, it changes to these more blues and purples, right? So again, if the ball is still, there's these pretty warm colors, sort of a mixture of blues and warmer colors, but when the ball speeds up, you get a much higher percentage of, it also matters the angle of the camera. So looking straight down from above, going very slowly, there's all the warm colors mixed in with the blues, but then looking down from above, there's going faster, there's all those purples and much cooler colors going in it. So if I'm going really fast and then I suddenly stop, going really fast and then stop, you see there's this change in the color pattern. So this makes it so that the world is responding to the movements of the ball. I want to show you a different example, which is way more obvious. That was pretty subtle, but I designed it to be subtle. Here, everything looks normal, except that the screen's glowing rainbowy, right? If you're standing still, this is what the scene looks like when you're standing still. Boxes and a rainbow glow, right? So standing still, this is normal. But then as the ball starts moving, the world turns into a rainbow. If the ball goes really fast, then the world gets really rainbowy. You see that? So if the ball stops, then everything's back to normal. The ball doesn't move, everything's normal. Ball speeds up, everything starts to get all glowy. And then right in the middle, I just stop. So I have a material that is a material effect on the screen in the post-process chain, and that material is being constantly edited in-game by the speed of the ball as the ball is moving, and that's how this effect is being controlled. Ball stops, everything is normal except the rainbow glow. If I go really slowly, there's a little bit of effect. The ground's a good example. If it goes slowly, there's a little bit of effect, right? But then if I speed up dramatically, if the ball speeds up dramatically, then the whole world goes bonkers, right? Oh, and I got stopped, so I slowed down a bit, got stopped, bumped into something, speed up again. So the world is completely interacting with and responding to the speed of the ball, right? Very fancy movement, then comes a stop. So that's one example. Another one, in this case, alright, I want to show you, let's start with something simple here. No. In my game, there's an editor. I created like this interactive ability. I need to be here, yeah. So this is in the editor mode. I can edit statistics. I can actually edit the wavelength. This material effect uses a sine function, and I used one of the fancier sine functions, which allows you to control its input value, its period. And so if I made the wavelength for the period of it's not actually the wavelength, it's this thing called the period. I changed that to something, but I'm calling it wavelength as a slang term because it's just faster to say, or it just makes more sense with what you're looking at visually. So if I make the quote-unquote wavelength very large, look at the sun, and then if I can make it 100, look at the sun's getting some more rings. If I go down to 10, the sun has way more rings, right? If I go down to 1, look at how many rings there are. If I go down to 0.1, there's this huge number of rings, right? If I go back up to 200, there's very little. What's happening right now? the material effect, the material is being constantly changed through user input. So this is the whole purpose of material instances. You can dynamically change the nature of a material while in-game using Unreal Script, using code. In this case, I'm actually able to edit the material through the user interface, because this is all in-game. This is not in an editor. It's in my editor, which is an in-game editor. So you're constantly changing values of the material through code. So think of the possibilities of that. You can edit anything about the material through code when you use material instances. You could change the scaling of the UVs. You could change, anything you play with when you work with materials, you can change while you're in game if you use a material instance. This is their power. This is why they're important. So in my case, I also linked the wavelength to the speed of the ball. So notice when the ball jumps, the wavelength gets shorter. When the ball is going fast, the wavelength is shorter. Look at the rings around the sun. Ball slows down, there's more rings. Ball goes fast, there's less rings, right? Yes, I bumped into something there. So ball's going fast, there's less rings. Ball stops, there's more. Now watch when the ball jumps, its velocity increases, and then when the ball stops again, there's more rings. So there's more rings when the ball is going slow, and there's less rings when the ball is going fast. And notice when the ball jumps, its velocity decreases as it reaches the peak of its jump, right? Let's turn it off for a second. When the ball jumps, its velocity speeds up, and then at its peak it slows down, and then it speeds up again, and then it stops, right? So zero speed, speed, slow down, speed again, right? And then it stops again. So when the material is being mapped to the velocity of the ball, you get more rings, and then you get less. There's the wavelength increases, but then at the peak of the ball's height, it's hard to say in language. Just watch what's happening. So notice how the wavelength of this material effect is constantly changing with the velocity of the ball, and the velocity of the ball is constantly changing while jumping, because it slows down when it reaches the peak of its height of its jump before it changes directions. It's a parabolic arc of its height, right? Of its speed, I mean. So that's looking at the sun, but if you're just playing, notice when the ball's going very fast, you see more rings that are more bigger, and look at the ground looks one way, and when you stop, notice how much more density and complexity of rings there are, and the general overall effect when the ball is not moving. But then when you speed up, the density decreases a little bit, there's less rings, and so you have this completely reactive environment which is responding to your ball, or your player, or whatever. You could do anything with this, the code that I'm giving you. This is just how I applied it to my game based on my personal interests. but you see what's happening. The world can be made alive with material instances, and notice this has nothing to do with camera angles, because there's a lot of functions in materials to have the material change based on camera angle or camera position or orientation or whatever. But this is actually based on the player ball or the player pawn. This has nothing to do with the camera. So it's a whole different layer of information. So that's that example. Oh, you probably want to see this. So, and this is what the world looks like normally, by the way, if you haven't seen the previous videos on this. But then, this is what it looks like when you have this fancy stuff going on. So, so that's that. Now, I want to show you some other kinds of material instances. Let's see, I'll show this one first. Yeah. Alright, and then I want to get a cube in here as well. Alright, so this is a material. So again, we're not in fancy. This is fancy mode, right? Actually, you know what? Those ones fit perfectly well in fancy mode, but this is just normal. this is there's no material effect on the screen right now. So the material, if the ball is still, that's what the material looks like. This is zero velocity on the ball. Notice when I change the camera angle, there's something that the material does, which is called a Fresnel effect, and there's also I have a sine curve to make it all ripply, but that's no movement. But if the ball moves in one direction, it turned green, right? The ball moves in a different direction, look, it turned blue. The ball goes forward, it turned pink. The ball goes back, turns that color. The ball goes at an angle, look at how it's changing, right? So the color of the material is being determined by the velocity of the ball, basically the direction of the ball. This is a normalized velocity, so it's only the length of the velocity vector is always 1, but so it's really just the direction of the movement of the ball that matters. It doesn't matter how fast the ball goes. It only matters what direction the ball is going in. So again, ball goes forward, you get pink, ball goes back, you get the bluish thing, ball goes this way, you get green, ball goes the other way, you get some other set of colors, but when the ball goes in a circle, you get the rainbow. So this is a material, again, that's completely responding to what the ball is doing. And again, camera angle is not what matters here. It's the ball, it's the player unit that matters. So the material and the ball are having a party. Alright, one more example. So think of the possibilities of what you could do now that you know you can cause the whole world to become interactive with your player unit. And it's through Unreal script code, so it doesn't have to be the ball's velocity. It could be anything. You could do it based on how many things the player shoots. You could base it on their health. You could base it on anything. The number of enemies left in the map. You know, the whole world could change colors based on how many enemies are left in the map or whatever. This is just how I chose to apply it, but the code I'm giving you and the general understanding you can use for anything. So notice this texture, there's that white stuff, that lightning looking effect, and when the ball is still, the lightning isn't moving. If the ball goes slowly, the lightning sort of thing is rippling a little bit. If the ball goes fast, then there's all this activity, right? Ball still, there's no lightning effect. Ball moves slowly, a little bit of lightning. Ball goes fast, a lot of lightning, right? So and then the other aspect of this material is that there's two states. Notice this one's not changing all sorts of colors. It's only alternating between a state that is pure black and red, and then the other state is, and this is based on angle, not speed. The other state is that sort of, oh, I stopped moving, is pink and blue, right? So there's pink and blue, and there's red and black. When the ball's not moving, you get red and black. Based on the direction of the angle of movement, you can get a blue effect. So this is this is angle based only. It doesn't matter um, how fast the ball is going. In the case of the other examples I showed you, it mattered how fast the ball was going with the rainbow effect that was going on. And remember, as the ball reached top speed, the wavelength got slower or longer. But here, this is just the angle of movement of the ball. And notice when I move the camera, notice how the blue never shows up, because the velocity of the ball is not moving, right? So there's the lightning effect is not going off, and the blue color is not appearing. Camera position and angle has nothing to do with it. It's the ball. When the ball starts moving, then that blue shows up, because the blue is it's a linear interpolation between two different textures that are somewhat similar looking, based on the angle of the ball. So, and I show the code for this. So, just look at the overall effect. You have this feeling that the environment is paying attention to you. You feel like everything feels a lot more interactive. Look, just black and red, then ball moves, and the angle changes, and you get the blue showing up. But it depends where you are to see the blue show up, so you find yourself sort of interacting with the world, trying to produce different effects on the world around you. And again, the lightning effect, lightning's not moving, start moving, lightning moves. So this is all being controlled by code, which I show you the code for, and you can really do anything. Again, you can make it if the player is at 50% health, this wall turns blue. If the player is at 10 health, the ball turns pink. Like, you can really do anything. But I'm showing you the basic code so you can apply it to any of your personal preferences. Now let's see what happens if you combine this with the rainbow effect. Well, this is entertaining. I definitely find it very entertaining. So, that's my example of material instances and all the different kind of results that you can get. So, enjoy! Let's get a shot of the sun as we go. Shot of the sky. Whee!